Palworld continues to be a huge success. There's almost 1 million people playing it on Steam every day. So really the question that's left on my mind, and the same as many of you, are what is the future for this game? Where is this actually headed, and is that a good direction? Because while we have a roadmap, after reaching endgame myself, I've got a few doubts. I've got some stuff that I'm not sure about and that I hope they'll prove us wrong on. To be completely fair, I think that what the game delivers for its asking price, especially on Game Pass, is well worth your money and your time as it is right now. And even at the endgame grind, I still find it really fun to jump into a new character, a new world, and just hang out with my friends doing stuff in the game. And while a lot of the things on the roadmap seem logical, it's a different question if they'll ever get there, and if that is the right direction for the game. Palworld isn't the first big breakout success in the early access survival genre. You could say that Valheim is the closest comparison point, and Valheim, very similarly, I felt like I got my money's worth, no doubt. But it's also true that the game kind of dropped off due to a lack of content. That's not the end of the world. The game is great, and I'm sure a lot of people are waiting to go back into it once it's in a more finished state, but Palworld might drop off in the same way, or it could retain that popularity depending on how quickly the updates come out and how much content they add. So I want to talk about the roadmap they've offered, what I think is good in it, what I'm not so sure about, and what I think is the best way for this game to really keep on being fantastic. Now, the first part of the roadmap is addressing critical issues, and that means things like bugs and server desyncs and things like that, and improvements to PAL AI. So these are 100% the right direction. After that, the game is going to shift into what I think is their vision for it, which is these 24-player big PvP servers that function more like Ark. But speaking of those 24-player servers, you might be worried that your gameplay experience won't be smooth. You might have a lot of lag or some disconnects, and I have just the thing to help you avoid that, and that's GearUp Booster. GearUp is a service designed to streamline and improve the connection to the games you play. It reduces your ping and latency by making sure that you're connected to the best server that the game offers, which normally you aren't. And then it makes sure that it's routing you to that server in the best possible way. It uses the game's official servers. It's completely safe. Your account can't get banned. I've tried it myself. In my case, testing it out with friends that live in the same city as me, we still saw a noticeable improvement in a lot of games. I saw the same result in League of Legends, and I live in the same city as one of the servers, and I saw a big improvement with Tekken 8, where every millisecond counts in ranked in that game. So if you're suffering from high ping and unstable connections, GearUp can help smooth that experience over, and you can try it completely for free, no credit card info required, using the link in the description below. You choose from their extensive list of games, and you're one click away from improving your connection. And if you're on console, you can try out the HyperRev router, which does the same thing, but from a router so that you can do it from the comfort of your living room. I personally tried it out. I tried it out with a ton of friends because I want to make sure it's a product I can stand behind when I take a sponsor. And this is something I do recommend. So thank you once again to GearUp for sponsoring this video. And remember, use the link below to try it out completely free. Now, I do think that's really interesting and is probably very appealing, but I also think it's not the main reason that most people are playing Palworld right now. I really do believe only a small section of the player base, which is enormous, is really going to be interested in that long-term server-wide progression of setting up your bases and protecting them and being logged in all of the time and coordinating with friends to defend bases or raid bases. I understand that it's their priority, but I often find that that's not the most fun part for a lot of people, and Palworld does have a huge casual audience. I remember that when I was playing V Rising with a group of friends, the whole being raided part was the thing that they didn't like. It was the most stressful, so we just went to play on servers where that didn't happen. And to be honest, for us, it wasn't the idea of PvP or losing your stuff. It was more the idea that you had to be there all of the time. You could get raided in the middle of the night, and if you actually cared for your stuff, you just had to be there, or you could wake up to the catastrophic consequences of it. Some people love that, other people don't. And I'm sure Palworld is going to keep working on the experience that most of us are playing right now, but I wonder how much emphasis they're going to place on these PvP servers, and if that's going to be the most appealing thing, and if that is really where the resources are going to be best spent. Because when we look at the roadmap, I think that the priority list is a bit weird. We start off with that PvP, and then we continue with raid bosses. So this would be big raids to take down a huge PAL that I suppose you can capture, but it provides an incentive to really gear up and farm up all of the things from the late game, like getting a bunch of rocket ammo or a bunch of ammo in general, getting all your PALs in tip-top shape, and I assume using all your PAL souls and making them as strong as possible so that you can take on these raids with friends. And while I think that is a compelling thing to do, it might be just a little bit too much of just a grind required for doing this experience of the raid, which is going to be focused on the combat, which I'm not sure is the thing that most people care about. And the third thing on the list is the PAL arena. I do think this one is quite smart because getting PvP for PALs battling each other sounds like something very fun that you can do with a casual audience, right? Just you and your friends, you get together in your server, you throw down your PALs in the arena and they can fight. That sounds really fun. And once we go from there, there's a lot of interesting things. We have crossplay, server transfers, and here at the bottom are the two that I think are the most important, and they're being saved for last, which makes me wonder a lot about the content timeline. If when these things start coming out, it might be too little, too late for the game, which again, doesn't mean it's a bad game. I think that the product that we got on launch is amazing. It's just I would like to see it continue to build momentum and stay at the top, then fall off and then have to come back, if you know what I mean. So those two things are the improvements to the building system and new islands, PALs, bosses, and technologies. And there's a lot that I want to discuss with this. Firstly, the building system. I'm not sure how much they can go deeper with the building system because I think that it's limited by that PAL AI. For me, the building is the biggest part that I would like in the game because I think it fits very naturally within the fantasy of Palworld. I want to build out a whole town for my PALs. I want to build them each little houses. I want to design them all and be very meticulous because that's the sort of survival gamer I am. I'm always the guy that's looking to build the massive fortresses or build mazes or just build cool stuff. And the building components in Palworld are very limited. I've talked about this before, but that's fine because the game focuses a lot more on other things. It has a strong focus on exploration, which I love. It has a strong focus on the PALs, which is what it should do. There's a lot of stuff going on in the game that I think it's all very fun, but when it comes to something that I can then sink an extra 40, 50, 100, 200 hours into, for me, that's building. And I feel like what's here is just not good enough for me to express my creativity. I feel very locked in to the things that the game gives me, and all of those pieces are very simple. So I just haven't interacted with it too much. And I think that's a shame because a lot of the end game progression that we can see in other survival games is geared around that building component. You will look for and mine very specific resources and be motivated to go into dangerous areas to obtain those resources because they'll give you something that aesthetically is going to fit in your base. You really want to make the entrance out of this material, or you really want to make a room that looks a certain way. So you need to go out and find those materials that lead to those constructions. It's, in my opinion, a very easy way to add a lot of value to a game if you have the building systems put in, which is not really the case for Palworld. If you do have them put in, it's as easy as adding new resources in new areas, and you have this extra piece, right? If you're already going to make new content for the game, putting in new resources that are difficult to get, that lead to new constructions, just adds so many hours compared to the effort of putting in that new ore type and those new textures for the new thing you can build. But for me, putting in that sort of building, something like Valheim, into Palworld would make it kind of a dream game. So to see it this low on the planned future updates list makes me feel like it's not a priority, and I don't know if that's a good idea. I want to know from you guys, because I think that a lot of you maybe aren't here to get that experience from Palworld. You're not looking for the survival crafting and the building aspect in this game. I really like the idea of building in this world specifically. So that's me. But the biggest topic when it comes to the future of Palworld to me is new islands, pals, bosses, and technologies. And that's because all of these have to go very hand in hand when it comes to progression within the game. My favorite part of Palworld is reaching a new island that I can explore. Finding the unique towns, structures, dungeons, things like that within each of those new islands, and discovering what are all of the pals that are there, and then kind of setting up, preparing for doing my 10 captures of each of these new pals is really the hook that keeps me going. And until I reached endgame and explored the whole thing, I was always excited to reach a new area because there was always something cool to find. I could explore and find eggs, I could find the Liftmonk effigies, and then I could capture all of the pals in that area. The new islands need to be special. They need to contain their own ecosystem, their own pals, and their own unique locations to really keep that feeling for me. And I think those islands, pals, bosses, and the technologies really need to be geared towards that, because even if it's not the thing that most people talk about, I think that the feeling you get when reaching a new island and having all of that progress loop start over again, where you're like, oh man, now I gotta start exploring all of this. That is what really sells the game and keeps me coming back for more. And when those islands are out and I just have the automation systems, I kind of lose that feeling. I just go back to starting again, because then I can go through the whole progression of, oh, now I can fly, now I can do this, now it's easier, or it's even possible for me to reach these new islands. I think Palworld does a great job because of its fixed map, because of those locations, because it's fun to explore in making the journey just as interesting as the destination. If we're talking about actually reaching those islands, and then the destination being the loop of capturing everything and using the resources in the area. And the technologies and the pals available and the mobility and how you restrict access to these newer islands is going to be, for me, a critical part of the game expanding. And to me, if this is the progress route, I think what we're hoping for is to end up with a game that is quite unique within the survival crafting genre. Because instead of being a game that's meant to be played endlessly, and that endless part would be covered by the PvP, what we would end up with is just a title that you can play single player or multiplayer, that if it's just this, but with, let's say, 50%, 60% more content, more islands, more levels, more pals, it's just an experience, maybe 50 to 100 hours of you going on this loop and keeping it engaging through each new island. That is what I personally would like to see them nail when it comes to the roadmap and the way towards 1.0 or the full release. And I hope they don't lose sight of that. I hope the islands don't end up being just another location where there are pals. There needs to be something truly cool in the process of getting there, exploring them, and capturing those new pals. Also, since I'm just going to be wishlisting here, I would really like some movement tech. I don't know, give me like roller skates or something. Give me something that is less just pressing forward on a mount and then gliding, you know, getting on Jetragon and just zooming by. Give me something that lets me interact with the map in a way that's fun, but also fast, so that there's like a skill element involved in moving fast. That would make this game just perfect. But that's just here at the end. I gotta talk about it from... That's just what I would like. And I hope that the team at Palworld knows and understands what they have and how brilliant it is, and they know how to capitalize on it by nailing down exactly what a majority of people are really going to enjoy in the game, what it is that keeps most people playing and addicted to it, and not just hyper-focusing on what they originally promised. Because yes, they originally said this game was going to have that PvP arc survival building Rust type of infrastructure, type of system. But now that the game is as massive as it is that still the #1 priority? I'm not sure. There's something to be said about delivering as quickly as possible on what you promised people, but I think there's also something to be said about shifting those priorities in the favor of the majority. But maybe I'm wrong. Let me know how you feel about it. If you really are interested in that 24+ player PvP part of the game in the comments below. I'm really excited for Palworld. I hope the game continues to be a success, and I have a very big analysis talking about the creature collecting genre and Pokemon specifically, kind of comparing the two, but not in the same way that everybody's done. It's like, oh, Palworld good, Pokemon bad. There's more to it than that when it comes to why people enjoy the creature collecting genre. And I've got a very big video talking about that coming up soon. So if you aren't subscribed, remember to do that so you don't miss it. I've been Mug Thief. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video made you think. I hope you hit like on the video, and I'll see you very soon.